children want boundaries. They want you to tell them no. They want you to, show them where they can and can't go. They're always trying to, we say it all the time, you're pushing my boundaries. I'm at the limit today. They're really testing me and trying me, but that's how they learn and that's what they want to do. But you've got to remain firm and fair because they're looking up to you, whether they know it or not, to show them the right way.
Hello and welcome. Today I'm here with Dani.
Hello.
Or Donna, how I like to call her. That's a reference to the suits because she really is like Donna, always in control of everything, always in charge of everything, and always right.
That's very kind of you, but it's more like a swan. So on the surface, that's how it looks, but underneath the water.
Okay, well, Dani is a teacher, PE teacher.
No, school teacher.
School teacher. And what do you teach?
So at the minute I'm in what we'd call FS2. So it's for 5-year-olds, but it's teaching everything: English, maths, science, everything.
Okay. I don't know why I thought that you actually also teach PE. Is it part of it?
Yeah, we teach PE as part of our day.
Okay, so probably that's why. And you're also coaching kids, CrossFit.
Starting to.
Starting to coach kids CrossFit. And that's mainly what I want to talk about how it is, how to deal with it, why to do it, and so on, because that's just so important, I believe. So, tell me about you, how you got into sports, and your kind of background as a kid and everything.
My history. So, because in terms of CrossFit, I've only been doing CrossFit for the last year. My first time was at Sands. Luckily, I came in at May last year and signed up straight away. Loved it. But in terms of fitness before that, I was in and out of the gym for about 6 or 7 years, just doing fitness, cardio, weights, all that kind of thing. And then fell into CrossFit, loved it. This time last year, coming up to the summer holidays, I decided to do the level 1. Selfishly, more probably for my own technique to kind of learn the movements, but the end goal and where I was thinking was I wanted to do the CrossFit Kids. But like with anything, when it comes to children, you can't just jump into it really without knowing your stuff because you're shaping little people. So I did the course with the end goal of that, and then recently, obviously, moved into the coaching. So I'm starting my internship with Phil, and so far it's going well, and I'm enjoying it.
Cool. And if you go a little bit more back, like your sport when you were a kid, or how you were involved with sports and stuff.
It wasn't super active. I mean, every week at school, we'd have PE and we'd have sports lessons. Depending on the season of the year, it would be hockey in the winter, netball in the spring, and then rounders and athletics in the summer. So I took part in school, sports and PE. And then in my after school, I was lucky I did ballet and swimming. So kind of the usual after school clubs that you would do. And I was lucky that...
Ballet is the usual.
In England, yeah. Quite a lot of girls do little dancing class. I don't know. I thought it was, maybe not.
Well, I didn't consider ballet to be a common extracurricular activity, but maybe in England it is.
We have a lot of dance in schools, and children sometimes do a class in the evenings or in the weekends. And I kind of followed that for most of my childhood until I got into the teenage years when it was cooler to hang out with friends than maybe be doing clubs and things. And then went off to uni, and the social side of life became a bit more appealing and time consuming. And then more or less when I was qualifying through uni, so I'd kind of knuckled down a bit more, was spending more time on my studies, in and out of school, doing placements. I then started doing personal training with a coach in my area, and then kind of fell into other kind of group sports. So I did boxing for a while in my area because there was a gentleman from where we lived who was a professional boxer but had to stop, as quite often they their career span is quite short with boxing. And then he took up coaching. So, me and my friends kind of went along to support him, as you do with friends when they start new ventures, and really enjoyed that. So did that for a little while.
So you did boxing as well?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, before you said you did ice hockey in the winter.
Not ice hockey, just field hockey.
Oh, okay. Field hockey in the winter. And that was normal that at school they were just throwing at different stuff or a different part of the year just to keep you busy.
So in the winter, the girls would do the field hockey, normally on Astro, but field hockey, and the boys would do rugby. And then in the spring, when the weather gets a bit nicer, we would move on to netball, and the boys would then do the hockey.
And this is organized by school?
Yeah. So it's part of your curriculum, part of the school day. You would
so that wasn't like some clubs you were attending after school?
You could do that also, yeah.
All right.
And then you'd have fixtures where you would go and play against other schools.
So a huge versatility you went through.
Yeah.
You did everything.
Multi-sports.
So did you do rugby as well, or not rugby? No. But there is ladies rugby as well.
Yeah, but for some reason in school it's just the boys go down that route and the girls do the non-contact stuff.
Non-contact. Well, field hockey can be contact as well, right?
Yeah.
But less than rugby for sure. Okay. All right. So what was when you were growing up as a girl, and then let's say teenage girl and a young woman? Were you really thinking about some deeper importance of the fitness in your life or some training, or you basically just did it because there was a way how to spend your time?
I think the latter. When I was younger, it was just something, like I was lucky that my mum and dad signed me up for ballet and swimming lessons, and we did the sport in school, and I was okay at it. I wasn't ever, first team. I wasn't ever the best at it. So I think it was one of those things that I enjoyed participating in it. I enjoyed doing it with friends, but it wasn't anything that I kind of strove to. I wasn't as passionate then as I am for it now. And I think that really came from later on, in my early 20s, where fitness then became more of a, not like an outlet, but if you have a bad day at the office, you can go to the gym, put your headphones on, work out, and then you leave feeling better from the endorphins and from the benefits of the workout. So
you turned it into a kind of therapy eventually, as many people should, as many people do, and even more people should. Okay, so how old are you?
31.
31. Okay, so you said early 20s, you start to look at it a little bit differently. You were using it also to just de-stress and so on. What type of training you were doing that time?
So at the time then I was doing just personal training sessions with a coach twice a week. I then started doing the boxing twice a week, and then I would have done just the regular gym. So my personal trainer would have given me like a little program, very low weights, bit of cardio, just to kind of move and yeah.
So more like a machine type of thing in the gym?
Yeah, the resistant plate weights.
Yeah, like the pin machines all that. Mm-hmm. And have you had any problems, injuries or stuff like that?
Funnily enough, not till CrossFit, but
okay,
the worst thing to say.
We'll get there. And what about the boxing? Like, was it that intense that there was a risk of injury, or?
I mean, if he went down that route, and he was preparing fighters to go in the ring and battle at competition, but they always used to laugh at me that I was a friendly boxer, because I'd be like, if I slipped on the pad or hit somebody, I'd be like, sorry, and go again. And they're like, that's the idea. You're not meant to apologize. You're meant to keep going. I loved watching it. I love supporting my friends, but the girls are mean. Like, and I know that's the whole point in boxing, when you hit and you see a bit of blood to keep going, but I wouldn't be able to do that.
I studied a bit of this, like security, martial arts stuff, and we're always taught, which is something you can observe in many areas, as you mentioned, that the girls were very mean. It's very common also for animals that females tend to be way more aggressive, and because they cannot detach the emotion from the situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you will see two dogs fighting, like males, there'll be just, there'll be a little bit of biting, growling, barking, whatever, and then they go from each other. Two bitches fighting, that's die or leave kind of situation. And you can see it a lot also. I mean, of course, we can't put it into general terms. There are exceptions, but a lot of times you can see also these top fighters, when you see ladies, like there is something different in their eyes. Like it's not a sport in that moment for them. It's just really fight for life. Yeah.
It's almost like the shark eyes.
Yeah.
They just like glaze over and go, which I guess you have to be able to put yourself through that pain.
So there wasn't anything too special. We were just not that type. Yeah.
Said sorry too many times apparently.
So you had like this kind of a group of girls who were...
No, mixed. Girls and boys.
Oh, that was mixed. Okay. So just normal boxing club you were attending and... okay. Well, why not, right? Why not to throw some punches and no injuries there?
No.
All good.
Broken nails a couple of times, but...
Yeah, that's
usual
not
stuff.
too bad. How long have you been doing this?
What's that, the boxing?
Yeah, the boxing.
Probably for a year.
Okay.
And then I moved.
You mean move on with your life or moved away from the...
Yeah, I just moved away from it. I think school, I became a full-time teacher and it just gets hard to do the early mornings for school when you're doing things like that. And I joined, I'm trying to think where I went after that. Oh, I just joined a 24-hour gym because the hours suited better for work. I'm going to say cover your ears, but it was then like Les Mills and I started doing those kind of group, for fun. Because it was, like you say, like it became a release from work. So it wasn't necessarily about massive fitness gains, but in terms of feeling better and moving and, doing something at the end of the day.
So you studied... What did you study?
At university?
Yeah.
So I actually did 1 year of tourism and travel because I wanted to really be an air hostess. But I knew at some point that I'd need maybe a degree to fall back on and go in a career way. So I did a year of that and I loved the geography and the people side of the courses and the subjects. But when it came to the business and the maths and growth development and all kinds of technical terms from business that I don't even remember, it wasn't for me. So the idea of going back for second year, I couldn't do it, but I knew I wanted to do something. So it was actually on a family ski trip that I sat there and I was like, you know what? I could do teaching. Why not, change my course and do all that. And apparently when the news broke with the family, they were all like, oh, finally, yes, we can see you doing that. Great choice. And I was like, oh, thanks. No one mentioned this before.
Family council approved. Yeah.
I think being the oldest of all my cousins, they'd obviously seen through the years, nurturing that. But so I had to wait a year to go back in the September because the course was already full and kind of. So by then I was 2 years older than most of the friends that were on my course. So where they were out partying and really enjoying uni life and the time away from home from the first time, I'd already done 2 years of that. So it helped me massively because I could kind of knuckle down and do a bit more.
So what you did that 1 year in between?
So I just worked at an optician's of all places, just in a shop, selling glasses, contact lenses, that kind of thing. And then 1 day a week going in to volunteer at schools. I kind of wanted to make sure that this was what I wanted to do and I wasn't going to change my mind.
You can do it just like that? Like, hi, I'm thinking about being a teacher and I want to volunteer here now?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, you have to go through security checks and you're never left alone with the children. But schools are desperate.
I was just thinking it might be a great way for some type of people to get close to kids, right?
No, I'm good, honest.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't worried about you.
But schools, especially in the UK, sitting and reading with children, helping out, they welcome it. I certainly have had a few volunteers in my class to kind of mentor. And it was quite good for me because, like I said, I wanted to make sure that it was definitely what I wanted to do. I'm very indecisive and I can change my mind a lot. So I wanted to make sure that it was definitely the way I wanted to go.
Well, it seems that it was the right choice.
Well, yeah, all these years later.
Yeah. So you started to study to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. So is it like what they were teaching you? Because you don't have like a subject specialization, right?
No.
Like you're not like a math teacher or this teacher. You're just a general...
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways.
Not just, I mean, I don't mean it that way, yeah? Like,
just the teacher.
Well, you're just dealing with the kids with the most critical age, right? So
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
There's different ways of doing it, but the way that I did is I was at uni. So I did my degrees in education and early childhood studies. So that was more kind of to do with psychology, children growing up, a little bit of biology, but more about the history of education, where it's come from, and the nitty-gritties. And then after that, you do a year called postgraduate certificate in education, a PGCE. And during that year, I had placement blocks where you go into school, and that's when you practice or learn to be a teacher. You're put in a class with children, and you plan and start to deliver lessons. And then the uni.
You have some kind of consultation to do you have a feedback on this? Like somebody providing you feedback?
Yeah, so you're attached to a university.
Okay.
So you would go, so in September we had, I can't remember, I think 4 weeks of lectures. They would talk you through planning lessons and different, you'd have one for different subjects, for English, maths lessons, because I was doing primary. So that's why I'm kind of general. Whereas if you're a secondary teacher, you'd probably do, for example, maybe your degree in maths and then do your teaching year after that and then go into the classroom. I'm saying that, I don't know, I'm not secondary, but so in that final year, that was when we did our placements. So we were in school for blocks of time playing, it felt like playing a teacher. But of course the teacher of the class would help support you, mentor you, guide you, and then you'd have your tutors from the university come out and observe you and grade you, and then at the end of the year you pass and you can go off to the real world and be a teacher.
Now, not to disrespect anybody, what is the passing rate there? Like, is it like when you try a bit, everybody will pass, or it was pretty strict?
No, it's pretty tough. You have your teaching standards. So there's 8 teaching standards that you're graded against. And, you're at the mercy of the school that you go into as well. I mean, I was very fortunate that both my school placements were excellent, and the teachers that I were paired with were really good, and they would take me in and observe me every week. You'd have observations nearly every day, and they'd give you feedback, which you could then constantly take, a bit like you do with us when you're coaching us in CrossFit. But obviously, rather than coaching us as members, you're coaching the next person, like internships, I guess, with the coaches. So it's very similar to that, is the way that I can kind of explain it.
No, I'm just asking because you said it like very casual, like, yeah, you graded here and then you pass.
Sorry. It feels like a long time. Well, it is a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, now it seems easy, but I'm sure at the time I was probably pulling my hair out, and because it's always putting yourself out there, isn't it? And out of your comfort zone. It's not something I'd done before, and public speaking is tough. So then speaking in front of children, and you want to do right by them, because at the end of the day, you've only got them for a year to teach them before they move on to the next year, and you want to make sure they're ready before you do that. Okay.
And that was already oriented for you to kind of teach this 4 or 5-year-old?
No, so back at that time in university, the first class I had was year 5, so they would be 10-year-olds. And then the second placement I had, they were year 2, so they were 6, 7-year-olds. And then I've taught, since then, pretty much every year.
Cool. I want to go to you like kind of brushed into it a little bit. And I want to ask you on your professional, experienced opinion on education system we have right now around the world.
Around the world?
Generally, I mean, it's very different, of course, from country to country. You can't compare, Africa, UK. You can't even compare Slovakia to UK because we were blessed with 40 years of communism, right?
I mean, I can't really compare anything other than the British curriculum, because that's all I've taught.
Yeah, what I want to know your opinion on, because that's something I was kind of looking into, and there is a lot of people now pushing this kind of new approach and new ideas of how very harmful and not designed for our times the system is, where you just need to sit in a rows, shut the fuck up, follow what the teacher is saying, and basically, at least where I'm coming from, and I also know from conversations, this is a big case in, for example, India and Indian educational system. I was talking with a couple of people who went through that. It's this way, and you're supposed to repeat or practically memorize. You can sometimes say it in your own way, but you practically need to memorize whatever the teacher is saying, and that's the one correct answer. And you know how it's kind of killing the creativity.
That's just what I was about to say. And it's Victorian at the end of the day. That's when this...
Yeah. So you said you studied history. So tell us how it started and why it's wrong.
But that's in essence what it is. It's that style of teaching has come from way back in history, the 19th century. And politics is difficult, and whoever's in power, obviously they've got a tough job in changing things. But the latest change that the British curriculum had, certainly in primary, is that we're going a bit more skill-based, which to me is music to my ear. So focusing on skills rather than what you're saying, information. So children aren't having to learn to be able to recall, learn sentences and facts, but actually take it and shape it themselves. Now, again, I'm fortunate. I'm starting at the bottom of the school where children come to you full of ideas, imaginations. You can give them a cardboard box and it could become a million things.
You said you're fortunate or unfortunate?
No, fortunate.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And the reason it's fortunate is because the curriculum for those age groups is wonderful. The way I teach and the way, I've got colleagues who are way more experienced than me in the foundation stage is that, we have 7 areas of learning. Within that, there's 17 strands. There's, lots and lots of statements and objectives that we have to assess the children against. But what we don't do, which is what happens in later years, is think, right, okay, this is the objective we're teaching today. Right, everyone, we're all going to sit, we're all going to learn to count to 10. No, sorry, we're going to learn to count to hundreds and tens. We're all going to sit, we're all going to do all different activities that allow us to learn that. That's not how it works in foundation. The way that the earlier years in schools are set up is that the environment is set up allow the children to explore, investigate, lead their own learning. And it's a lot of what we all call child-led learning.
Child-led learning, meaning they're leading the learning themselves.
Yes.
Can you give, because I find this super fascinating, and if somebody is bored with this, just scroll over.
Go to someone talk about fitness.
But I'm really, really curious, because at the end it's the same. It's how to make people learn very efficiently, and you need to have a couple of aspects there, and one of them is that people need to be, or kids in this case, need to be able to do mistakes, right? They need to be allowed to do mistakes, because if you're not allowed to do mistakes, you're never going to try something outside the line, outside of the box. So can you give me a little bit more specific example on what would be the old way of teaching certain objective and what is your way teaching certain objective by the child-led learning?
Again, it depends on the age, and that's where the curriculum has its faults, because higher up in the school, children are expected to sit and write for a lot more sustained time, whereas the age of the children that I have, it's what you'd call play-based learning. I'm going to massively misquote someone here, but they kind of say, tell it to me and I'll forget it. Teach it to me and I might remember, but let me lead it and I'll remember for life. Something along those lines. But it's basically saying that, if the teacher stood at the front of the class telling the children 5 times 5 is 25, then they might remember it.
Oh, you were not sure. If it's 25.
I'm so used to FS maths. Could you see the panic in my eyes? Like, did I say that right?
I saw that.
If you teach it to them, so if you, I don't know, maybe set out, the way I've taught in the past, 3 times tables is bunches of 3s on the table. So 3 forks, 3 cups, 3 pairs of scissors, 3 pieces of paper, and just say to the children, okay, what have we got here? Oh, that's 3 and that's 3, and maybe a triangle for 3, and, lead it with them. Okay, so if we've got 3, 3 and 3, how many is that? And do repeated addition. So that would be kind of teaching them with it. But at the end of the day, I've still set the table up. I've still set the classroom up for them to meet that objective and go that way. The way that the younger children are taught, and like I said, I've got loads of colleagues that are way more experienced than me.
When you say younger, you mean what age?
So FS1, FS2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Is, for example, the other day at school, I had girls that were redoing their hair. I'm sure to their mother's horror. They had, they come to school with lovely plaits, but they wanted to plait it differently. So they were sat in the corner of the classroom, trying to brush, trying to plait, trying to do their hair. At the other side of the classroom, there was a little girl who was putting pegs on her fingers, and she's saying she'd gone to the nail salon. So the next day, on the way home from school that day, I went and bought nail polish. I'd spoken to my TA first, and we went and got lemon. And then the next day at school, we turned our classroom into a spa. So we had buckets full of water, and they put the lemon in it. We had hairbrushes and hair bobbles for them to do their hair. There was a nail polish station where they were painting, boys and girls were painting their nails.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is quite controversial here in the UAE, but it's exploring, and it's what they wanted. So for that day, the classroom changed to their current interest, and they were playing there and learning there all day. We went and got a little till from one of the other classrooms. So then there was children sat there. One was a shopkeeper. So they were playing with money and learning kind of the benefits of that. They decided how much they were going to charge for someone to paint their nails and kind of. So it's play based, but they're learning and the communication and language and the personal skills that they're learning with each other. And it was tailored completely to, 2 or 3 children's interest in that class. It wasn't, right, okay, today I'm going to turn the classroom into an airport and we're going to, I'm sure they would be interested in it, but probably for 5 or 10 minutes, and then the boys would gravitate back to the train tracks that they've been enjoying playing all week, and it wouldn't be where they were wanting to take it.
How many kids you have in this class?
20.
20. And how many teachers?
Just me, and then my teaching assistant.
Oh, okay. Well, it's something, but oh wow, okay, that's a lot. I would assume
it is, but then again, if the classroom's set up the correct way, and there's things that are going to interest them, the children are so busy in leading and directing their own learning, and it's our job to kind of be facilitators and go around to them and extend and challenge and lead it in different ways.
So basically, you are kind of a floor manager there.
Yeah,
like you're just kind of managing what is going on, but not necessarily teaching, because the teaching is up to them.
Yeah, basically. And then, and then obviously it's the teacher's still integral. Like you still need the adult interactions in there because the children will get so far themselves, but especially here where a lot of children have English as a second language, they might need an adult to come in and take it a bit further. So for example, the other day we'd put red water in the water tray and the boys had found straws and they were enjoying blowing bubbles because we'd put some soap in there, and it's a volcano was what they were shouting and getting very excited, and the girls came and added dinosaurs, and it was lovely what they were doing. But then
what do you say? They came out of dinosaurs?
They got the dinosaurs and put them in the water.
Okay.
They like dinosaurs at the minute.
Okay.
And my TA, bless her, had gone and seen a toy volcano, in our stockroom at school, so she came and put that in the set to enhance it, to give them some more. So then she was talking to them about eruption and lava, words that they knew volcano, but they didn't have the rest of the vocabulary. So yes, you're a floor manager keeping a watchful eye all the time, but it is important to kind of jump in and lead them on.
I can tell you that 100% what you said before, that misquote quotation, what you said. When whether it was in like a theoretical field, let's say physiology, biology, or wherever, or whether it was on the body as a movement and practical stuff, if you come up with an answer to a question by yourself, or if you're forced to figure it out yourself, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. That's the thing. Not like so you just have this and then somebody gives you an answer, or even better, you are not even curious about it and somebody gives you answer to something what you don't necessarily even want to know, right? So I always found I somehow did it naturally, and at the end I didn't know that time that it's a good way of learning, but I kind of even thought that I might be procrastinating at that moment. But when I was studying for exams, especially on uni, it was like, okay, so I got a question and I got some, answer worked out either by a classmate or older year, somebody just, posted it, whatever. Mm-hmm. Or I found it on Wikipedia, the best source, right?
Very valuable.
Yeah, but then I was like, I read somewhere, never go through a text or through even a book without fully understanding what you are covering. So if you come to a point where you don't understand either a word or anything there, just dig into it, and then you start to read this pretty specialized article or page, even on Wikipedia, where it just says some terms that you don't understand. And it ended up with me doing one question that was supposed to be basically, I read a question and then I learned the answer, which was 1 or 2 A4s, let's say. And I ended up doing that for 6 hours because I wasn't learning what was in the text.
You were learning around it.
But I was learning everything around it by Googling and looking at the different answers, looking at the different possibilities, because especially with internet and even all the scientific articles. Like if you want to have, I had this conversation a couple of months ago with one lady. She was asking me for cracking fingers, if it's bad or not. And it's like, well, go online and try to find an supportive evidence that it's bad. You will find it.
Yeah.
Go online and try to find supporting evidence that there's nothing bad, and it might be even beneficial for you for whatever reason, and you will find it. So, and then you're getting perspectives, and then you're trying to dig into it. So I had on my laptop, I had 20 tabs, at the top opened by searching for one question. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, one question, 6 hours gone. Like, I'm never going to make it to the exam.
And they want like 4 sentences and you give them 4 pages.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't like making any essay or anything. I was basically just preparing for a potential oral exam. Yeah.
But was it easier once you'd had all that research?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Then I got to the next question. I was like, well, I know this already because it was so tight together that I already covered that in my previous so-called air quotes research, And I found it super interesting that even though I wasn't 100% sure what the answer is, because for me, the answer never was 100%, I could talk about it. I could talk about it from a different perspectives, pro and con. You know what debating championships are?
No, but I can.
Yeah, like when they have it's an actual thing. At school, that you have people who will pull out a topic, and they need to debate. They have a judge, and they need to debate it back and forth. Yeah, like, and somebody will kind of like get a point. I know how it's scored. Yeah. But somebody is winning, somebody is not winning.
With the strongest argument, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is that you got assigned what side you are actually protecting. So there can be even controversial stuff, even they're probably trying to avoid that. But I mean, let's say now, just an out of my head example for no particular reason. Okay, transgender. Okay.
Because we weren't discussing that earlier.
Yeah, because. So let's say there'll be your topic will be transgender athletes in sports.
Yep.
And now you will be assigned that you have to say pro arguments, and I have to be saying against, even though my own opinion is different. And I find this very interesting because then you need to really do some mental athletic to get around it, because you actually have to do a supporting evidence or arguments towards something you don't even believe in.
But you have to do the research.
But you have to do that.
And actually, as you were talking there, I was thinking back to your previous question about the education system, and that's exactly true. We have all that playing creativity at the start of the school, then they go through school and we're so fixated on the exams at the end or getting into secondary or then passing their GCSEs that it then becomes, their funnels that we're trying to cram all this information into. And exams are, how often do you remember what your exams were based on? You asked me earlier what it was like during my final year in university, and there would have been questions, there would have been essays, but right now I can't remember, because in the moment you do it for that purpose and then you forget about it. Whereas the information that you would have learned from doing your own research and leading it your own way, because you wanted to get better and you wanted to have a better understanding, that's come from yourself. It's not because your teacher has said, you need to learn X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I was always kind of considered the nerd, kind of a controversial nerd, because I never agreed with, or not never, but many times I wasn't really agreeing with the where our education was heading, especially in nutrition and stuff. Like I had a little bit opposing opinions on some stuff. Anyway, I was never doing it for the exam. I really loved it, and that's why I was considered nerd, because they thought, you just reading this and studying. It's like, no, I just like it, And my kind of way of thinking about it was like, what if? And that started mainly when I started to coach, which was while I was still studying. I was like, what if a person will come and ask me this? I was like, oh shit. I do the research, because of course you can't have all the answers, but you should have the opinion. And to have an opinion, you kind of need some background information, right?
But that's quite rare. You're a good coach because you have all of that and because you can answer those questions. But I know we can probably think of lots of coaches, especially here in Dubai, that don't have that. But it's only as rare
as it's rare to do what you love, because I only did it for that. It's not like I found out some secret recipe. It was just like because I like it, right? So it's a recipe, right? Just love what you do, and then it will somehow.
But you just said it's quite rare. Like, I don't think I couldn't do my job if I didn't love it. I think the hours that teachers have to do, and I know there's probably loads of people that would be like, oh, only 9 to 5, 9 to 3 or whatever. But, the time...
Yeah, and all the holidays, oh my God.
I know, it's hard. but we earn those holidays. And you have to be passionate to what you do. I mean, your reaction to saying I've got 20 in my class, I mean, that's quite small. Most teachers would have up to 30 in their classes. We had 20 because of COVID. I've said it. And we had to have 10 and 10. Or...
Now monkeypox is
the new thing.
The new thing, so...
But that's, you've got to be passionate in what you do. I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with responsibility you have, because you are there also to trigger their minds, right? And if you'll be passive and not liking what you do, it will really reflect on them, right? So
kids are so receptive. I mean, you could go in and teach them the most boringest of subjects ever. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but something tough, something boring. But if you go in there excited and animated, and you have fun things for them to do around it, and you can connect it to what they've previously learned or something that they're interested in, they'll follow you. They'll come with you, and they'll enjoy it without even thinking about it.
That's even a kind of challenge, right? Like, oh shit, this is the most boring thing. How can I make it interesting?
I mean, double maths on a Monday morning, nobody would like that. But, if you can make it exciting and to their interests, they're going to enjoy it. And then it's easier for you if they enjoy it.
When, you go back to the Victorian, education system. Sorry, I interrupted you in that.
In terms of what it was like?
In terms of, you know how it started, why it started, right?
I did when I was at uni, but I had to learn it for a test and I've forgotten.
Oh, that's there.
There we go.
That's there.
But in terms, it was, obviously, children sat in rows, chalkboards, wrote, from what I imagine and what I've used, what you see is repetition. And there's lots of studies around education. And I'm a bit like you. I like to be research informed. I'm in the management team at school, and something my principal is very passionate about is education and research education. So if we're making any changes in schools, why? There has to be, and I know I agree with what you're saying. You can always find counter and opposing arguments, but he's looking at the recent research trends, and what's difficult with education, and I do think there does need to be changes to it, is that we've got children like my 4-year-olds that are in class now. There's jobs that these guys are going to go into that aren't even available right now. I mean, even what we're doing now, podcasting, is relatively new. I don't know how long podcasting's been going for, but it's
10, 15 years. But not in this massive scale.
Yeah. And when we were at school, podcasts weren't a thing.
Oh, I wish it was. You know what I would be doing?
The school podcast. But
no, I would be just listening to the podcast all the time. Long.
But, so of course, for you to be able to do what you're doing with podcasts, is someone at some point has had to teach you communication and language skills, speaking and listening, a lot of vocabulary. So that's what, it's education's have a hard job, because we're trying to make sure that children are best equipped for future and for jobs that might not even exist right now. And everything goes through trends. At the minute it is health and fitness is popular, podcast is popular, people trying to learn and improve themselves is what people are going into. But in 5 years' time it might be civil engineering or
or human organs engineering. That's coming. It's coming, growing instead of the tomatoes, you'll grow your own liver in the pot. Anyway, this is a joke, obviously. So the thing that came into my mind right now is you were saying this, how to make sure that we're preparing kids for something that doesn't even exist now, but we kind of setting them up for a successful path, or at least potentially successful path. And it always comes to my mind that we should not teach, or we should not focus on pushing any necessarily information or any direction of thinking, but just thinking in general.
Well, you want to teach them skills. You want to make them lifelong learners. Like, I know we laugh and joke about being nerds like it's a bad thing, but actually that skill's there about being able to do research and being passionate about something that actually the people that weren't the nerds, in my opinion, have missed out on. And they're worse off for not having those skills. You want to, help children grow up with, being critical thinkers and having those skills.
That's the greatest one, right? The critical thinking and actually being able to recognize what is bullshit and what is not. Because the information is available everywhere. There's enough information. Well, there is too much information. And we just need to... It's not about access right now, at least for, let's say, Western world and first world, maybe second world countries as well. When you have access to internet, wherever you have access to internet, you don't have a problem with access to information. What you have a problem with is to knowing what is right and what is semi-right and what is intentional bullshit, right?
And how to form your own opinion.
Yeah.
And being confident in forming your own
opinion. So how you do this with kids?
Exactly.
Your job.
All on me. But that's where it's important to have what I would call child-led learning that's awe and wonderful, that's exciting for them, that's going from their interest, because at the end of the day, they can find the information, but what we need to be teaching them is the skills of, okay, I've got this information, what do I do with it? I can sit and read it, but how do I interpret it? How do I form my own opinion? And so, like I say, the primary education's gone a little bit like that with the last curriculum change, and that it is a lot of skills, but not enough. It's still very much, for here in the UAE, teaching British curriculum, we have to teach them about British coins and the monarchy and, things that don't relate to these children. They don't have any concept of it. This
super side question is just, I'm very interested in this now. When you said the monarchy, right? Well, the UK is still monarchy.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, we've got the Queen.
So you teach them it's good?
We don't teach them that at all. We just teach them about the Queen.
Okay. So you don't really touch on kind of, I mean, not in a meaning of good or bad, but generally, like, do you teach them about that political side of it? Like, okay, this is monarchy where like one, but are they even kind of like, they're not ruling anymore, right? They're more like a representative part. Yeah.
And obviously they're still in charge of parliament. So they still have some kind of, I mean, I haven't got a clue. I don't really follow politics or anything like that. But, and when I was in year 4, so that's, I think how old they were, 8-9-year-olds, we looked at the kings and queens, but it was more about the changes of them and who they were and what happened within their reigns. Certainly later on, and if they go into history in secondary, you probably would look at the benefits of a monarchy, the downside to a monarchy, what that actually means compared to other ways of ruling a country.
Yeah, the thing with that whole education, where we kind of getting it, or at least from my perspective, is that when you have this kind of setting where your objective, because of curriculum and because of the history of education going on for a couple of 100 years now, you still, even though you're trying to change the methods, I see the little problem in a way how it's assessed, because at the end, even whatever methods you have, at the end they're assessed by how much they know.
And on that day, how they perform at a test.
Yeah, and again, which is the tricky part, right? When the educational system was starting, I actually believe that it was in a land, like actual space of Middle Europe, of Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, where Maria Theresa I think she was ruling 1840 to 1880. She was the first one in the world who made the school attendance compulsory for all kids.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like, it was the first in the world where it was compulsory. The thing was that as the Industrial Revolution came up, right, they needed to fill the factories with parents and they needed to take care of the kids. So they throw them into their little factories, which in a form of school, right? Like same thing, clock in, sit in a row, do what we tell you, or go for lunch when we tell you. If you want to go for a pee break, you ask us, and then you clock out, basically. But that's not really a creative way of reinforcing education. But then when we want them to be able to think for themselves and not really follow these very rigid rules of like, at the end of this year, you need to perform in this and this level.
And score this amount out of this amount.
Because you are at a certain age, which is another thing that everybody has a little bit different development speed, right? So I know you probably see it every day. Yeah. That some kids are a little bit further, some kids might be still a little bit less interested in what is going on. And
each child's unique. I'm going to completely sidestep now, but it's actually a book that you recommended, the sleep book. And this is something that
you know which one was it?
Matt Walker, is it Why We Sleep?
Matt Walker, yeah.
And I mean, if I had the power to do this, I would, but like, our school, especially here in Dubai, the children come into school at 7:30. So if they're getting picked up on bus, they're getting picked up at sometimes as early as 6 a.m., to get to school on time if the route's very long. But from that research...
So they go 1.5 hours in a bus?
Depends on the route. Sometimes they can be, And if you think about what the research in that book says, and I know he's just one book out of probably millions of researchers, that, children aren't awake and alert at that time. Teenagers, I'm thinking here, we're asking them to be in school from 7:30 in the morning. Whereas, all the research shows is that they're owls. They are up and, they only start getting sleepy at around 10, 11 o'clock at night, often after their parents have gone to bed. And then we're asking them to be up early and they're not getting a full night's sleep. And, there's so many... Sorry.
No, go on.
I'm going to say there's so many studies and researches that actually, children are... I'm thinking older teenagers here, but they're most alert at 2, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And that's the end of their school day. So we've had to drag them along with us all morning through lessons when they're sleepy, they're not functioning, their melatonin's still in their system. And then, boom, as they start to wake up, it's home time and off they go and sit in front of the sofa.
Then the question is it really by setup of their physiology, or can they influence it from the environmental perspective? Because, naturally the organism is supposed to get sleepy or tune down as the sun sets, which is 7 p.m. here. The problem is that if you have a fucking white light in your face constantly, which all of them have, because they have their own personal phone, if not two, tablet, if not two, and laptop TV. And computer and TV and so much shit. So it's also, I also had a classmate and he was, I only realized it later, but he was a fucking zombie because he was coming back home from school at 2 or 3, playing, eating in the meantime, but he was playing, I don't know, Counter-Strike or whatever it was, video games basically on the computer. He was playing till 4 a.m.
Gosh.
Yeah. Then he went for 1-2 hours to bed and then he was woken up by mom and taken to the school. Yeah. Like, that's not necessarily a physiological problem. That's also
and that's a big
the
part.
Habitual. Yeah,
a big part. But in terms of evolutionary, yes, the parents, fully grown adults. I was laughing at myself.
Sure,
I'm an adult. But
I was thinking about it today, like when it flipped to from you have to be supervised by somebody to you don't have to be supervised. I was thinking about it too. I was like. When did it happen?
I should probably still be supervised.
That's the thing.
My dad would probably agree.
So many people should be probably supervised, with their decisions. Like, that's why you have so many people partying at night because they're not supervised.
But it did say that, of course, like the adults will go to bed when the sun starts to set. And then teenagers normally, if, again, not interrupted by blue light, white light, have a couple of hours afterwards because obviously they're starting to gain independence. So, and this is how our bodies are amazing because they go through all these changes without us doing anything. It just happens inside us. But they will, so let's say, for example, adults, if not interrupted by anything, are starting to go to sleep at 7, then the teenagers will probably start to get sleepy and go to bed around 9. So they have those 2 hours without their parents to play around with that independence.
Okay.
That's, again, totally misquoting the book.
But socializing and creating their own structures.
And their own sense of being without under the watchful eye of parents.
Because when you think about it, right, you are at school closed with your peers for 8 hours or 7 hours. I mean, now I'm talking about teenage years.
Being talked at.
Yeah.
Having to sit there.
However, you still are between your tribe, kind of. Yeah. And yet, still, you have a need to go and hang out with them after 8 p.m. You know, like why is that? You know,
you can't do your gossiping at school.
That's a very good point. I mean, at least from what I experienced, because I was in this school where I got my primary. It's not a standard system, but you have that option when you do some exams and you're supposed to be like talented, let's say. Talented. Yeah. So, or let's say faster learner at that age, because that's probably nothing else than that. So from first to fourth grade, I was in one school, like primary school, and then I went to like a grammar school, which was 8 years, so still 10 years old to 18, and you graduate there. So we had 8 years with the same people. Even usually it's your high school. This was like a high school, but you start there earlier. Yeah. Usually you have high school with your peers for 4 years or max 5 years. And like this was a very, very interesting environment, because you're still there. And we're a pretty wild class, so I don't think that I was not socializing enough at school. You know, it was a lot. But you still have that need to go at night somewhere, right?
But it's funny because I know this isn't for everybody, but we don't socialize with those people anymore. So maybe being stuck with them for 8 hours a day put us off them, and we had other friends, I don't know. Yeah.
Might be, yeah. It wasn't usually the same people, so.
But, bringing it back to what the point was, is that it's funny that this education system is set up from 8 till 3 here, but yet actually, where's the research that says that's the best time for children to learn?
Well, no, that's the time their parents were going to work.
Yes.
And that's why it's set up that way.
But yeah, so it's not set up for the children and their benefit at all. It's actually, and, there's some schools, I think Finland, where they don't even, again, could be very wrong. Don't use me for facts on this. The children don't start school till they're 7. Yeah, we've got children in my school as young as 3. So, and again, I guess that's down to that country's setup, so that the children are able to stay at home, or they're playing and exploring and learning, and because you do learn when you're playing till 7, and then at 7 they enter the more formal. And I'm sure there's pros and cons to that, because if they're not being taught letters and sounds at home, then to try and learn it at 7 is quite tough if they haven't been reading beforehand. But, there's obviously different ways of doing it.
It's very interesting. When I'm thinking about it now and kind of comparing the school system, as you pointed out, like you sitting there for 6 to 8 hours, whatever it is, on a given day, and you're talked to, you can ask, probably. Nobody's really interested in asking, especially not in teenagers. Right? It wasn't very common that you were asking out of interest, to get more information. It was more rare than common. And then you compare it to, for example, an environment we have at the gym, where first of all, people are coming there because they want to be there, which is massive difference. And at the same time, not only they want to be there, but you are giving them opportunity to fuck up.
Snatches.
You just you go there, and that's also very individual. You can see patterns, like ladies are more like, I want a more strict instruction. Guys are like, you don't even say what the workout is, they're already doing it, and stuff like that. You can see the patterns a little bit, but generally it's individual, right? And you have that opportunity to manage even bigger class of 10, 12, 15. I would not really recommend to go bigger than that, because then you losing control no matter what. Just do a simple math, how much time you can spend per person when there's 25 people, right? Like 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, right?
And 25 adults would be worse than 25 6-year-olds.
Yeah, for sure. And then you give them some instruction, but it's up to them. And it doesn't matter if it's kids or if it's adults or teens, you give them some instruction and you lead them to explore. You tell them, okay, these are the key factors you want to focus on, and go on. And then you point out individual things. So you spend that individual time with them and giving them the feedback. But many times people will learn on their mistakes so fast that it's like, well, this doesn't feel right. Maybe I would just, I don't know, step a little bit wider. Or if you don't know, you can always ask, right? But it's very, very reinforced that you go and you do it yourself, not textbook, perfect one rep in 1 minute, just to make sure it's 100% on everybody. Because as bad as it sounds, if you do that, you're not really progressing anywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we touched on that, do you see the difference, for example, in you coaching in the gym, and then you have a PE with your kids?
Yeah.
Do you see the difference in the gym and with the kids, not only in age, but in interest?
Yeah, a little bit. And again, I've talked about this before. I don't know if it's because, again, the children have been signed up to those classes at the gym. They've been at school for a long day. Whereas when I'm with my PE class, the children know me as the teacher. And obviously it's different what I'm doing with them at school than what I would do with them in the gym. What you would try and do at the gym, and you probably would do it with the adults too, is that you want them to come, you want them to move, you want them to even just get 1% better, and you want them to enjoy it, because that's what's going to make them come back. And, by coming back consistently, they're going to improve and get better anyway. But, if you were to sit there and nitpick and change and try and correct everything that they were doing wrong in one session as a kid, that's so demoralizing. If you're constantly being told that this and this and this and this is wrong.
Also overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Overcoaching is probably the term for it. I don't know. But you're trying to do too much with them. And that's something that I'm learning at the minute, because of course, when you're new and you've got someone watching you because you're doing your internship, you want to try and get it right. So you want them to be right. And, yeah.
I was just telling Tima today, it's a quote from one movie. Sometimes it's not the best to do the best thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
The best thing would be trying to make them perfect, but sometimes it's not the best, because at the end, it's just not going to happen anyway.
But also, if they're only getting it right because I'm telling them, then they're not learning it for themselves. I mean, we picked up this before, and this goes to anything, not necessarily CrossFit in the gym, but, children need to make risks. They need to take risks. They need to make mistakes to learn from it. If they get it right, perfect the first time, have they learned anything in that? Okay, they could do it, but are they going to be able to do that again? Whereas actually, by making the mistakes and having the corrections and going through that process themselves, they're more likely to be stronger athletes.
Do you know Jordan Peterson? No?
Should I?
I don't know. I think you would enjoy his work.
Okay.
He's, I don't want to mess this up, but he was a Harvard professor, psychologist, probably psychiatrist as well, possibly. And he is very, very wild story. Plus his daughter was very sick, and she healed herself through a diet. The lion diet, where she's eating only meat with salt, nothing else. And he healed his depression with it, and also some other stuff. Anyway, what you said, that's exactly, there is a lot of viral videos, and whatever you watch on the Instagram, the smart algorithm, it gives you more of that, right? Yeah. So I would say it's all over the Instagram, because it's always popping up on me, but it's only because of the content I follow, right? So he's saying that the only place, and it's in a conversation, I believe it's in some kind of podcast conversation, where he's saying that the only place where kids learn is when they are allowed to do dangerous things carefully. Yes. So that's basically what you were just saying. Dangerous things, but carefully, which means that they are aware of the risk, they are aware of the consequences, but they do it anyway.
Under supervision. And that's what, going full circle back to what you're saying about teachers being like floor managers, is we haven't unfortunately got it in my setting, but I've seen it at others, and it's something I would love to bring into school is, 4 and 5 year olds with hammers, nails, saws, doing woodwork. I'm sure some parents would think, oh my gosh, I'd never give my 4-year-old a saw. Like, are you mad? Like, but actually, they're only going to lose a finger once. No, I'm joking.
Sword is...
Saw.
Oh, saw. Okay. I was like, sword is a little bit weird, but why not? But why not?
But, like they're only going to learn, and it's interesting and it's fun, and, the skills that they would get from it.
I heard of this project, and it was built on, I believe, in US neighborhood, where they just somehow, it started very, very like naturally and slowly evolved into a huge project. But it started in basically a couple of kids being like, oh, like we would like to really like have a swing here or something like that. And one of the parents was somehow enlightened and they was like, okay, let's build it together.
Amazing.
So they got the tools, they got the rope, and they got this thing, and suddenly another kid saw them, that they are, doing some work, doing some craft basically, and setting up this environment. So it attracted more kids.
Yeah.
They build it together and they're like, hey sir, what can we build tomorrow?
Exactly.
And it ended up being a huge kind of, it's like, I don't know, hundreds of square meters in the neighborhood, where kids bring their tools, kids get somehow sponsored, probably, of course, parents are buying it, right? Equipment, and they build whatever they want, but parents are not allowed to interfere.
That sounds like paradise.
So they walk inside, because now it's kind of like a caged space. Parents are not allowed inside. And if there are younger kids, the older are teaching them how to do it. So 8-year-old will teach the 5-year-old. And then, he will be learning from a 13-year-old, because that guy knows more or was there longer. And sometimes the 13-year-old is learning from the 8-year-old because it's new for him, right? And it just like, it completely changed also their behavior, their interest, because they just started to do something out of their own creativity.
And how much do they learn from that? There will still be maths in that. They're using their language, their vocabulary, and like you just said,
physics, right?
Yeah.
You can't fucking make a swing to work without understanding just a little bit of basic of the physics, right?
And when you're saying something that's quite fun to do in the classroom is using your more able children with the less able ones. So like when you're saying they're 13-year-old with an 8-year-old, because the 13-year-old will probably learn more from having to try and teach and coach that 8-year-old through it than the 8-year-old would learn from the 13-year-old. I mean, when I was a newly qualified teacher, maths lessons were really hard for me because I enjoy maths. I like maths. I could, apart from 5 times 5, do sums quite well.
That's the only problem.
It's because I'm like...
Logarithms are fine, but 5 by 5 is
So I would teach, I'd be, trying to teach children, and I'd be like, how can you not get this? Like, it's obvious the answer is this, and like, will you just do this? And I had to do the most learning in the subject that I was most confident in, because I was having to really step it back to basics, just like you do with coaching. You're not just going to give a child a barbell and be like, okay, off you go and snatch. You have to really
I don't give barbells to people anymore.
Too many injuries.
I give no sandbags.
Sandbags. Sandbags and yokes. But do you know what I mean? Like,
but why? Because you learn more with it. You have way better transfer anyway. Yeah, but that's a different topic. Yeah. Oh, so you said one thing and I probably forgot what I wanted to say.
I know what I was going to ask you there though. It's about the carnivore diet, which you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that I would never recommend it to anybody. Okay. In a meaning of do this. Mm-hmm. I believe that if somebody has very hard and deep depression or autoimmune disease, which was actually the case of the daughter, mm-hmm. Michaela Peterson. She had a couple of joints replacements by age 15. There was some arthritis shit going on, like very tough condition. And she was asked, and she also had depressions. And her dad asked her when she was 15 or 16, like, what would you give up? And she was like, I can deal with that arthritis, mm-hmm. but the depression is like way worse. So you can imagine what that was, right? Yeah. And so she tried, she did it, and it worked for her. she started it as an elimination diet, and she somehow either read or heard from somebody that you just basically need to get some amount of protein every day. So she was like, well, and it's very high quality grass-fed beef only. Yeah, so it's not just like any meat you buy anywhere.
You'd be bankrupt in a week in Dubai trying to buy that good quality meat.
Probably, yes. That's probably they have to do all this public stuff because they need to learn for all the meat. But that's the only thing they eat. So, and then basically he did it because she told him. He was also in depression because their mom of the family got sick or something like that. I can't remember the story exactly. And he just started to implement it as an elimination diet, like getting rid of this, getting rid of this, getting rid of this, and he was feeling better and better and better, and it ended up in a point that even he was eating green beans with the steak, he was getting flare-ups and like the reactions of his organism to it. So as he said, like for me, even because he's only drinking water and having that steak with salt. That's all he's consuming all days. So he's saying, like, for me, sparkling water and water is a huge difference. For me, even a little bit hotter water and cold water makes difference because that's at least some variation. I don't think that this will work for everybody. However, I believe if somebody has some tough condition, whether it's mental or physical, and especially if it's autoimmune, I would eliminate as much as possible and simplify the diet as much as possible, which means that just give your body break and give your body chance not to be surprised constantly by that food. We usually tend to have a couple of go-to foods anyway, so people think, oh my god, the diet's so restricting. At the end, you always eat 5 to 6 meals in a week, and then sometimes from time to time you have something different. But many people, they don't even realize it, but they even order the same thing in a restaurant when they are there, even if they are not going with that intention, they will always kind of be around the same kind of rules. The problem is when it's donuts. But yeah, like go to as simple and as little amount of variety and get your body break. See how it feels. That would be my recommendation for sure. However, going only on steak, I don't know. It's probably, look, it works for them. And there might be other people it would work for.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it will work for everybody because the differences are crazy.
But that's like with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with everything. Like with the teaching.
Yeah.
Like with education. The one method can work for one kid and it will never work for the other.
No. And the sign of a good teacher is being able to differentiate and tailor it to help all children.
Yeah. So it's actually a very exciting and creative job, right?
Should be.
If you do it right.
Yeah.
If you do it right. I want to ask you, because that's what where all this was leading to. Anyway, this was like super, super interesting, everything you shared. Now, I want to go more into that fitness part of it. What is kind of like a general motoric fitness level and approach of, I know you still work with like younger kids, but still, like, can you see our parents encouraging them to do physical activities? Are they doing some sports on the side? Are they maybe some over ambitious parents who want their kids to be, gymnasts from 3-year-old or something like that?
I think the thing you see, and again, this probably isn't surprising, is that parents are really influential, as are teachers and any adult really in children's lives. So, not surprisingly, if you've got a parent who's very active and very sporty, the children probably have that intention as well. Might not necessarily be the same sport, but, they have the same drive, the same ambition, the same motivation and determination to get them there. Parents are role models. So if you've got a parent that is only going home and, very sedentary, maybe has an off.
You can say it as it is.
Is lazy.
Lazy bitch on the couch. Yes. Yeah.
Then that's, why are the children then they're not going to think to go up and go on their bikes.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly.
Right?
Whereas if you've got, mum and dad are waking the kids up on a Saturday, or kids wake mum and dad up on a Saturday morning and they have their breakfast and they go for a family bike ride. Well, then that's teaching the children skills and habits that they'll probably then take forward into their own lives. And when they're older, okay, they might not be getting up for family bike rides. They might be getting up to go to a gym class or a yoga class or a hike. But the children are only going to want to do things that they've had experience of. And at 4 years old, they're not going to have experience of a lot. They're relying on their adults around them to give them those experiences, whether it's teacher, older sibling, mum, dad, auntie, uncle. Our job as adults is to give them as many experiences as possible, to make it fun for them to then, well, certainly for healthy habits to be formed.
You reminded me one meme, I would say, or just like a picture on the internet. Mm-hmm. We can call it meme. It's not meme. It's not like satiric, but kind of. You have there are two moms who sit next to each other in like a bus. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's say on a bench, and one of the mom is having a tablet in her hands. Uh-huh. And the other mom has a book. And they have kids. The mom with the book has a kid with a book, and the mom with the tablet has a kid with a tablet next to them. And the mom with the tablet is looking at the mom with the book. It's like, how do you make your kid read?
Duh.
Exactly. Yeah, but this is the reality that they can't really see it.
But you've only got to go to a restaurant. And I'm saying Dubai because obviously we're in Dubai, but anywhere around the world. And like, how often do you see a family where mum, dad are on the phones, children have got tablets or phones in front of themselves, and they can sit there for 20 minutes and not even be speaking to each other? And like, that might be the first time that day that they've got together as a family.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be slapped on the head if I had my phone at the dinner table. I mean, that's your time to connect with your family members, find out what they've been doing, and yeah. And
human interaction.
Yeah.
Not humanoid, but human.
And that meme is, picture is so true.
Yeah.
I mean, something that I actually did my dissertation on is, it's our classroom set up to allow us to read, and, going a little bit sexist, but the biggest factor for reading is dad's reading. I mean, my dad's always read and always enforced us to read. And as a result, both me and my brother are quite big readers, and, holiday or wherever we're traveling, we've always got books. But if you think, or were to ask people at the gym how many of them actually read, it would be interesting to see then, did their dads read? Did their mums read with them? And I think sometimes if it's seen as a chore, they don't enjoy it. Okay,
when you say the dad's reading, it's because mom reading doesn't matter in some kind of sense?
I don't know. I haven't looked enough into it, but I think, especially boys look up to their dads so much. So, if they're struggling to read and it's something that mum's making them do with them, it's a chore. Whereas if they're seeing dad reading for pleasure, it works for mums as well, mum's reading for pleasure, but seeing another adult reading because they want to read, not because they have to read, not because it's a school book or their job has told them to read it, but because they want to read, then that has a really positive impact on the children too.
And do you also mean by reading with them when they're younger?
Both.
Or reading to them?
Yeah. I say to the parents of my class, obviously the books that the children bring home are very simple. An adult would read it in 2 seconds, but, read to them. Let them read their book to you, which obviously might just have a sentence on a page. But if they then want to choose a book from their library, you can then read it too. I mean, I remember for my 7th or 8th birthday, I got Harry Potter. There was no way I could, if I had to read that book to myself, it was only the first one, but for a 7, 8-year-old, that's quite big. And if I had to sit and sound out and read all those big words, like, it would have taken me years to get to the end of it. And I wouldn't have remembered what I'd read on the page before, never mind at the beginning of the story. But by having that to look forward to at bedtime every night to sit and read with mum or dad.
That's funny that you're saying this, because as I went to home a couple of weeks ago, some nights I was putting my 3-year-old niece into bed, and I was reading her Harry Potter because they have all of them. I let her pick any episode, book. I mean, any of the 7, and she picked either of them. Yeah. She didn't absolutely care at what page we're starting at or anything. I lied. Because I was sleeping in her room, but on the floor, and always in the morning she just woke up and she's like, are we going, are we getting up? I was like, just come and sleep. So she came next to me and slept on the floor next to me for like 1 more hour. But when I was putting her into bed, I was reading. I just randomly opened it. And a couple of things were happening. First of all, when I stopped reading and she still wasn't asleep, she was like, what's going on? Yeah, go on. Paolo, read. And then what happened that I fell asleep a couple of times. And then also what happened was that after she was already asleep, I realized that I'm still reading, not even allowed.
When was the last time you sat down and read like that?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that a lot because I like fiction. Mm-hmm. I basically don't read fiction anymore. If I read non-fiction, it's usually through the screen because I have it in like PDF or whatever, and I don't print it out just to read. And generally, I do way more. I used to read like shit ton. Now I do more either audiobooks or podcasts. That's just like that's what I'm. Yeah, it's something, but I'm not really like sitting down and reading. Even though I know I probably should do it more. Yeah.
There you go, Harry Potter. What was that?
Well, Harry Potter, I know back and forth. Like I don't need to read that anymore. Yeah. Have you read? This is like one book that I read probably like 20 times. The Godfather?
No.
Okay. 100% recommend it. Okay. That book, I think I can like...
I haven't seen the film either. I know.
Okay. So...
Homework for today.
No, go home right now. There is a 50th anniversary of the movie right now, right this year. Okay. It's all over the movies. Okay. Movie theaters all around. You can even go for all of them in a marathon. I don't recommend that though. It's pretty long time, but it's very cool. Okay. It's very cool. But I still think the book is way better than the movies. Yeah. So when you do a PE with little kids, this 4 or 5 year old, okay, I'll take this also as a no pressure. What would you recommend for parents to do with them as a physical activity? How to keep them entertained? Of course, you can ask them what they would like to do, right?
That's the best way.
Yeah. But also, like, how do you make it in the group setting that you keep them entertained? You don't have them messing around too much when there's only 2 of you to manage them. And what kind of activities you do with them?
I mean, it's just making it fun. And it's dependent on when the children are. So like at school, obviously we have our objectives, but it depends what space you're in and what equipment you've got around them. But you can do anything with anything.
What is the objective?
Well, so sometimes it will be like for the children that I've got, it's more about balance, coordination, throwing, catching, being able to run, skip, jump, move around in different ways. So at the start of the year, we were looking at animals because they were obsessed with animals. So we would just play, YouTube's got everything on it, but play different animal sounds. And they would just move around the room acting like an elephant, a monkey, a tiger, a lion, and just their own ways.
You even have the animal flow movement in a meaning of it's like a big thing where they actually have their own. People use it for warm-ups and stuff. And you basically, you do a leopard and then you do a turtle or whatever, and it has its own rules. And the point is to make the movement as smooth as possible. And it has all crazy benefits because it's practically a lot of crawling and like jumping. You do frog, and you want to also always land properly. And it's a lot of similar stuff to what Ido Portal is doing as well. So.
I'll try it on Monday at school and let you know.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, the key is just to make it fun, make it enjoyable, and like short and snappy. Something that we always were taught, I don't know where I've got it from, but I've picked it up somewhere along my career is, if you've got a 4-year-old child, you don't want them sitting listening for more than 4 minutes. Their attention span can't last longer than that. Obviously, the older the child is, the longer it is. But if you're sitting down and being like, right, this is the rules of the game, and
what age it's going down again?
My age.
That attention span. The peak is at 18, and then it just drops.
But just make it fun. And I mean, you said it. If you let them choose what they want to do, make an obstacle course. You can use anything to make an obstacle course.
I kind of thought that this will be the direction. Just a task that is challenging.
Yeah, scavenger hunts. I mean, I've forgotten the acronym for it, but when you're doing PE lessons and you're thinking about differentiation, there's certain things, and the PE teachers are going to listen and be like, "Oh, you're so wrong." But like you can change speed. So whether it's to music or you use a timer, right? Okay, we're going to walk to that post. We're going to run to the next post. We're going to walk or jog or change the speed that they're using. Change direction. Like I say, the timer. It's a bit like CrossFit where you've got your AMRAPs, or you're doing it for time, or you're doing it for load and to get heavier. Just have different
for quality. Don't forget.
Yeah. Sorry, you know what I meant. Because I think of teaching. But yeah, just give them different. Start with something and then just keep adding to it, building to it. Dubai is hard because certainly this time of year you can't do enough things outside, and a lot of the attractions come with expensive prices or costs that if you've got more than one child, it's then going to bankrupt you at a weekend, or it's surrounded by fast food outlets and fizzy drinks, which then defeats the purpose of doing something fun. But again, like you said earlier, the internet is such a good source of ideas. If I'm trying to do something fun, like for the nail salon, obviously the children, that was quite easy, but if they were doing something else that I wasn't sure of, if they were obsessed with boats and sailing, I might, have a look on Pinterest. What have other teachers done out there? How have they transformed their classroom into a harbour for the day? What kind of activities or things have they done with the children? And you can do the same for sports. I saw something the other day because one of the boys in my class has started ice skating lessons. Now, as much as I'd love to, I can't take them to the ice skating rink every day for a bit of PE. But have a quick look online, and you can paper plates on their feet, and they can slide along the floor like they're ice skating.
Nice. Well, this so much reminds me, all these activities for kids. It's super similar to team building activities for adults, right?
Because we want to be kids.
Yeah, right.
And I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about kids going to school for 8 hours. Have you ever remembered any recent seminars you've been to or any recent training courses? If they're done correctly, probably not, but I went on one the other week. You were at a seminar and you're sitting and you're tired and you're sleeping, you're yawning and you're fidgeting because you're being asked to sit there, and that's what we're asking the kids to do all day.
You remember when we did the seminar in Sands?
Yes.
Me, Phil, and Timea. Mm-hmm. So that was when you give me questions, I go. I have
all the information comes out.
Yeah, I have a hard time stopping, and it's not necessarily just just information I'm saying, but it's about sharing, right? So everybody has something to bring to the table. But when the questions are flowing, it's opening always new doors, because you can't just okay, we're talking about this topic, and it's not narrow, it's all so intertwined and connected. However, the main thing there is, which gives me always this a little almost anxiety, let them move, move already, because you see how people when they start to change positions, that's too late. Yeah. That's already too late, because usually people want to be the good students and they want to be alert, and they want to be focused on what's going on. But once they start to change position, it's time to move. Whether it's just we used to have this thing when I was studying in Denmark, and we were on a lesson that was theoretical, but these teachers and their way of teaching was just fabulous. They were amazing educators. Mm-hmm. Apparently in Denmark there is super big competition in teachers market, because there's so many of them. You have to be fucking good to have a job. Yeah. And so it's not we'll take anybody just because we need somebody to teach. They have many people to pick from. And we just, we talking about something. It was also fitness related, and it was interesting, but everybody just, maybe after lunch or whatever, it was sleepy or something, and no warning whatsoever. And I was just anybody who touches the tree and comes back first, wins the prize. The last one's doing 20 burpees. Fuck.
You move.
Hey, we went with socks. We didn't care. Yeah. And you just go outside. It was even winter. You just. But,
colder the better.
Yeah, but it will completely wake you up, and how that changed the energy. that was amazing. I think they should do like this kind of every 15 minute, 1 minute of squats on every meeting, and they would have way higher efficiency. First of all, you want meeting to be over because you don't want to do too many times the squats.
Yes.
And you have the blood flow
for your brain
going, and attention is there, and the productivity is higher. So
talking of, we might have lost everyone on the podcast by now. Too long.
Oh well, they can squat right now.
Everybody get up.
Yeah, get up and do something.
10 burpees.
We could. I can assign some of these buttons to some sound. So next time I'll be pressing it, and every 10 minutes there is every 10 minutes there will be some fitness challenge. Yeah. So when you do the kids classes in SANS, what is the age frame there?
So at the minute they've got preteens, which are like 10 to 13, 12-year-olds. And then they've got the teens, which are your older teens.
And you're having both classes?
Whichever one's Phil's got. I tend to just follow Phil around.
Sorry, once again?
Whichever group Phil is coaching that day, I tend to follow him around.
Oh, okay.
But like today we had both teens and preteens together.
What kind of stuff you do with them?
So, I mean, he still does the program at the minute. I'm tending to do like the the warm-up games, and maybe a little bit of the skill. But you're teaching them CrossFit just at their level. I mean, something that's quite surprised me with children this age is that they have no body awareness. So it's trying
Is it surprising you?
For me, yeah.
Okay. I used to be super surprised by that, but now it's just, oh my God, you
ask them to squat, and it's like, so it's constantly for me, and this is why I'm enjoying it, is I'm having to learn and think outside the box. So, when it's squatting, get the medicine ball, get the wall ball, and we'll sit on that. And Phil's great to learn from, because going back to what we're saying about getting the children to do it through mistakes and trial and error, he'll get them to go into a position, hold it, so they can feel it. They can feel where their muscles are meant to be contracted. They can feel what position they're going to be in before going through the whole range of motion.
Yeah, but this is probably a bit better, right? Because these older kids, like they can listen. Is it like, from the discipline perspective, is it okay? Like, are they listening or?
Yeah. I mean, once they know you, they respect you just like a teacher. But again, it's using behavior management strategies. So if they're not paying attention, 10 burpees usually does the trick. Everyone stop, 10 burpees. You're not listening, we'll go in again. If I have to stop again, it'll be another 10 burpees. But again, it goes back to, not doing anything for too long. So if you've got them for an hour, you put your warm-up games, you then take them through the skills, and then you'll put like the workout on at the end. They're not getting chance to be bored, because they're constantly moving on to the next thing and developing and getting stronger.
One thing I want to ask you, because I have a very different experiences from different people, and this is like forever going discussion, as you mentioned now, burpees as a reward for doing bad stuff, right? I tend to think now, I used to do it a lot, 1 minute of being late means 5 burpees. There was also for a warm-up and safety purposes, because, if somebody is 5 minutes late and does 25 burpees on the side, like, okay, you might be at the level of being warm, or at least semi-warm, to a level of people who are already doing the class with you. And the 25 burpees is going to take some time as well. However, Then I heard an opinion which I kind of relate to now. I don't like putting a movement as a punishment, just for the pure sense of not creating that association that doing a burpee is a bad thing.
I was literally just thinking, if you weren't going to say that, I was going to say that next, is that the downside to that is you don't want them to associate, burpees are bad.
Yeah.
I've been bad, I got to do burpees, because then...
Or assault bike.
And that's probably why we all hate burpees.
Yeah, because there was always, something what kind of everybody can do to a certain performance degree and quality degree. However, it's probably not the best to just, reinforce that thinking. So, yeah, but then
again,
what would be an alternative strategy for you that kids are not listening And what you do instead of punishing, because at that moment it's a punishment, then with a timbre piece?
So it depends. Like if I was in school in the classroom, which I guess is probably a safer space for me than the gym at the minute because I'm learning that stuff still. It's all new to me. But if like I remember seeing one of my first year, one of the year 6 teachers doing this. She was a friend as well, but she just stood at the front, arms crossed, just stood there. Didn't say anything, didn't raise her voice, didn't make a sound. And suddenly one child notices she stood there, makes eye contact and stops talking. And then the next one and the next one. And it was amazing because she didn't have to say or do anything. And then, in an observation lesson or if somebody else in the room, it can feel, like death. You're stood there and you're thinking like, oh my God, this is so long. And they're not noticing. But just by doing nothing, they then stop. Now, of course, in the gym, that's not necessarily going to work. And you've also got to think of the safety element. Like if they're not listening and messing around with weights or a barbell, you don't want them to hurt themselves because they're not listening to the instruction. But
doesn't it? Because I can imagine that it also comes to the personality.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people might stand there whole day and
be waiting and waiting.
Yeah, waiting, and it's not really happening.
Yeah.
Of course, probably depends what energy putting into that stare, right? And how much they respect you or how much violence they expect from you. In that situation, as how much you can make them miserable if they don't stop.
But is miserable going to get them on side?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you don't want them to stop miserable. Because you want them to stop. You want them to stop because they will realize that it's better for them to actually listen, right?
And that they're going to gain something from listening rather than that it's not a punishment.
Yeah. So
because something we I always say to my, whether it's mentor, teachers that I'm mentoring or just in discussions with them, like we always have at school as well, where I am now, we have a positive behavior policy. We don't agree with shouting, which I think is great because the minute a teacher shouts, they've lost control. If you're having to show that anger and shout that much, it means you're fight or flight almost. You're losing control and you're shouting to make the biggest noise. You're making noise over them to get their attention and to get across your disappointment. And especially with teenagers, they're probably going to think, oh, all right, and carry on. Like, where do you go from there?
Like you lost, basically. You already lost,
yeah. Whereas you want to get them on side because, like you say, they respect you and they want to follow you. So by making it fun, by making a joke, they should be listening and they should be joining in. And I think it's mostly when you're new to it that they're not like that, and whether it's because they don't know you, or they haven't got used to you yet. But
then the question comes from all this: how much you can afford to be a friend? Because that's the borderline as well, right? If you go too far to being a friend, the respect goes down,
and you can't be their friend. At the end of the day, I mean, I've seen so many teachers fail because they're trying to be the friend and then they can't pull back from that later on. And like you say, if you're their friend, then they've not got respect for you as an adult. They're just going to walk all over you. Children want boundaries. They want you to tell them no. They want you to, show them where they can and can't go. They're always trying to. We say it all the time. You're pushing my boundaries. I'm at the limit today. They're really testing me and trying me. But that's how they learn, and that's what they want to do. But you've got to remain firm and fair because they're looking up to you, whether they know it or not, to show them the right way. And if you're going to bend the rules because you want to be their friend, or if you said we're going to do one more rep and then we're going to go and do the run, and they're like, no, I want to do 5, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. Well, then that 5 then becomes 6 and 7 and 8, and you're never going to get them to do what they need to do or what you want them to do because they're the ones then in control. That balance has shifted. And like you say, it's down to respect. So you want to be fun, you want to be firm with them, and you've got to be fair with them too, because that's how you're going to gain their respect. Then they're going to look up to you and have a lot more respect and likely to follow what you're saying than if you're their friend. I'm not saying you've got to be mean to them. Of course, like you want to be friendly and you want to be approachable.
Yeah, but being friendly and being a friend is
very different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Oh, you said that very, very interesting thing. Like you're not trying to be on their side because they need and they want the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think this is something what a lot of a lot of parents and educators might be missing, that the fact that we as a humans, we thrive when we have a structure. Just today, I had with one friend and client of mine a conversation where he was saying that he signed up for these, like, I don't want to do any promo to any company. I know what it's. I don't even know what it's. The prepaid meal plans.
Okay.
Where they send you the meal. They don't give you the meal plan. They actually send you the actual meals based on whatever. And I knew he's doing it. Dropped 6 kilos in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And he's feeling way better. I mean, that wasn't necessarily his primary goal. Because that's what I asked him, like, well, you're strong, you're doing well, like you don't necessarily need to lose weight. If you want to, okay, whatever, for whatever reason, right? You feel better when you're lighter, okay. But he did it for a very pure reason of actually being forced to follow something, being forced to follow a structure.
And also because then it made sure that I'm come off it now because I got a bit bored of it, but it was the ease of it. If I was relying on, or I had to make my own meals for me with work and things, I might eat at 6 a.m. I might then not eat until 3 p.m. I was then going to the gym with barely anything in me to then train and lift weights. Like, whereas by having those meals arrive on the doorstep in the morning, there's my lunch, my breakfast, my dinner, you make sure you eat it, and it's that structure. What
you're describing is still a lot of kind of convenience there.
Yeah.
For him, it's not convenience because he could have his meal prepped by other people as well at home, like his wife or his mom. They live a whole family together. So that was not a problem or a challenge. The challenge was that he wanted to have a control over what he is eating, but outsourced control. Because he said, if I am supposed to focus on that control, it's never going to happen. And this is very similar point that we want, and we deal very well with life when we have a structure, when we have a routine, where we have a regime, where we know what is going on. This happened with Timea's niece and my niece as well, and also a couple of other kids around. Like sometimes they are around 3-4 years old now. When they didn't know what is going to happen, that's when the distress came. That's when they were like, oh shit. And then either potential crying or something, like a normal kid stuff. But then you start to observe the patterns when it's happening. And it's mostly happening when they are not expecting the situation, what is going on, because it's outside of the routine, outside of the regime. So being like, okay, I'm not saying, especially for that health purposes, that you have to have an alarm clock with a kid at 7 a.m. every morning. However, if you have a set up bedtime that is following certain routine of like, okay, so you have dinner at 7, then 7:30 you have bath or shower, and then you brush your teeth, and then I don't know, you have either a bedtime story or something, and by 8:30 you are at bed every single day, then you're going to thrive, because they will most likely tend to still, because of following the circadian rhythms, they'll be able to wake up at the same time every day. And if it's off for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, especially when the mom is available and on the maternity leave, or there is somebody else to take care of that, right? Yeah. But if they have, one day they go to bed at 10 and then the other day they go to bed at 8 because the afternoon bedtime was messed up because of a different schedule, and it's just like chaotic. so chaotic, then they don't know what to expect.
But we're just creatures of habit. I mean, look at the gym car park spaces. Everyone parks. In the morning, I can drive in and I know where everyone's going to park. And it's like we're probably all doing it in a sleepy haze, but it's just in the morning, that's just where you drive. I mean, I know here most of us have assigned parking spaces, but if we didn't, I bet we would probably all park in the same bit. And we're just we like that routine. We like that structure.
It's also because when you know something, it's more familiar, less scary, less potential to be surprised, which means danger in evolutionary perspective, right?
But going back to what you're saying about thriving because of it, I mean, again, misquoting because I don't know who said it, but if it's true, we only have a certain amount of right decisions in the day. And if you've got to decide when you're going to bed, if you've got to decide when you're doing this, like that's using up decisions.
It's the, they call it emotional account theory. Decision account theory. Basically, you have only certain amount of emotional power, willpower to make decisions. And if you basically make some of them routine, you don't have to make that decision.
I mean, Matt Fraser, when he was competing, shaved his hair off. And he's been quoted on things saying it was one less decision for him to make in the morning. He could get up, get in his gym clothes and go to the gym and start moving weights and using his emotional power and decision making there at the gym where it counts between how much to push it that day, what weight to do, rather than using one to style his hair.
Very simple example. Like, when is usually the cheat meal happening? It's not breakfast.
No.
Nobody has a cheat meal for breakfast because you wake up more or less fresh, but you still have the willpower to do the right decision. But then when you have to, look at these like high functioning individuals like Zuckerberg and whatever, like they dress very basically. They don't do decision of like, okay, I'm going to have this shirt and this tie and this and this and this. Like, you just have it outlined. I'm wearing this. Even it's the same socks every Monday, same shirt every Tuesday. It doesn't matter. But you have a routine in it, which means that you have less decisions to make. So exactly what you're saying.
So I've started like packing my gym bag and getting my work clothes out the night before for exactly that reason, because I was fed up of opening the cupboard in the morning and going, oh, what shall I wear today? And wasting time just by looking at a wardrobe full of clothes because I was in the morning. Whereas end of the day, you choose it, you commit to it, get up the next day, go.
And at the end, who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah. Who really cares if, I'm probably the last to talk about fashion and everything because I have like 3 shorts and probably like 5 of these shirtless tops, which are actually, I have a couple of the exact same color as well. So it seems that like I'm always in the same clothes. It's a different piece. Yeah.
I promise I do my washing.
Just saying. Yeah.
I'm clean.
Yeah. So, but it makes things very simple. And you can actually spend your decision power and willpower where it matters. Yeah. Like, for example, either job or actually spending time with your own kids when you have, right?
And having the energy too.
Isn't being a teacher making you like to want or don't want kids more?
No. It's very different though, because I get asked that so much. And it's like, but it's different because I have their kids for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and then I hand them back. And what I do, I'm not there, like being a parent, I'm sure is a lot harder because you're there at the 6 a.m. crying, the niggling when they're tired, when they're hurt, whereas we just have them in a group and pass them back.
However, you have 20 of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not many people have 20 kids at the same time.
No, but they probably still keep it like 2 at home would be harder than 20 in school, I promise.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you know better for sure. I don't have either experience, so.
I don't know. No. I have one experience.
Yeah. And, okay. When you think about these kids and like the movement culture, right, created, you said that they're like very discoordinated, and you were talking about specifically about the kids that you see in the gym, correct?
Yeah, but it's probably because I pay closer attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're asking them to do things, although it's called functional fitness, it's movements that they're not doing correctly probably every day. Whereas the things that I'm doing in PE at school, it's more game-based. So it's different kind of...
Yeah, and there's also age category.
Yes,
it's very different, right?
Very, very different.
When, because you're probably not going to ask them to do some kettlebell carries.
I mean, mine like doing
for
push-ups,
the kids, I mean,
yeah.
When you have this bunch of kids and do you know parents in the
gym ones? Not really. A couple stay, but most just drop off and go.
And could you draw any pattern of seeing like, oh, okay, this guy moves well because his parents are athletic?
I've got an example exactly for you. If you were to come to the gym next week at one of the classes and I was to tell you that Pete's children are there, you 100% could figure out who they were without even, and they're new to CrossFit. They've only been coming a couple of weeks now. He's got 2, and they're both similar to him in different ways, but one of them's just got the sheer determination that the minute a workout starts, or, Pete, from the morning?
I mean, I would probably know, but when you say it like this, I'm not very sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I'm not there in the morning.
But his son is exactly the same.
Okay. So it doesn't matter which one I will see. I will know who is Peter because they're the same. This is actually my plan for next episode, or one of the next episodes will be bringing Haya with her parents, right? Because that's insane, epic example of what happens when you lead the right way. Yes. Yeah, she's 14. I mean, she looks like 17 or 18, but she's 14. But the way she moves, she's extremely determined. She always comes with her mom or dad, or if they're not around, on her own. And she's always super focused, and it's just you can just see like she is thriving, But
what's really interesting is she's got a sister,
younger,
who used to come to the classes and hasn't. So, like, as much as it is parental influence, and it's lovely when Haya's there with her mum and dad at the gym, a lot of that's on Haya too, and the type of person that she is in her own right, because she's taking that and leading that herself. But yeah, she's phenomenal. Yeah, the progress she's making.
And I don't care about like numbers or I'm not saying about like what she can clean or deadlift or whatever, but just that consistency and the passion she's always bringing in. Like it's very cool to watch, because you with her mom and dad on the side, like you can definitely see where it's coming from, right? Oh, yeah. Like that influence is there, and this is this would be one of the questions I would ask you, but I know the answer. Like, what is the best way to get your kids moving? Like, move yourself,
be the model, be the role model. I mean, during lockdown, how many people had to take to home, like had to do workouts at home? Whether it was in front of the television following somebody, whether it was on the computer, with a PT doing Zoom. Yeah. But it would be interesting. Okay, while you were doing that, where were your children? Were they watching? Were they joining in? I can guarantee that if you were there with, some dumbbells or kettlebells and you had a toddler around, they would have been trying to do the same thing. If you're squatting around a toddler, I can guarantee the toddler will have better mobility than you and will be squatting to the floor as well.
I remember that couple of more than a couple of years ago, I was coaching in a gym, big home, and there was a whole family was there. Now they are actually my family, because it's my brother's wife's family. Okay. At that time it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And they had a little boy there. Now he's like 10. So it was like 7 years ago. He was maybe like 3, and there were snatches in the workout. And without any instruction on the side, like, we were going through the snatches. I can't even remember if I was coaching or I was just around. And then out of nowhere, you see this boy, 3-year-old, 3.5 maybe. He was holding a wooden stick, which we had instead of the PVCs. Yeah. And he did perfect squat snatch with that.
Wow.
Holding overhead and standing, just from watching. And he was definitely somehow subconsciously listening, but he was just like looking, okay, what mom is doing, what grandma is doing, what my auntie is doing, and bang, and just like perfect. I mean, no offense to anybody there, but it was the best squat snatch there.
From a 3-year-old. But we've got the same at the gym. Graham, one of our members, he's got a 1-year-old. And quite often, if there's like an event going on, like whether it was Murph or whether it was like any of the Easter workouts or any of the family events, when we have everyone's family comes along, and he'll be there too. He'll go straight to a barbell and try lifting, and like he's just excited by it because he can see that daddy's doing it. I want to do it too.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing how there's sponges just sucking everything.
It's so important to know, because on the flip side, they're sponges, and it's great that we're seeing them take up all this, fitness and exercise habits, but on the flip side, if they're only seeing you come in, grumpy, sit down on the sofa, feet up, watching the television, then that's all they're going to do too.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Dani, is there anything you want to say?
No. I said so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for doing this, and even on such a short notice.
That's okay.
And probably there's so much we can talk about, but we'll somehow structure it, and maybe we'll keep something for the next time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.